Sounds good. And just to confirm, you can hear me well, correct?
Yes.
I always like to start off my programs by confirming that people can both hear me, and see my slides. And so we're going to go ahead and do that. And I'm actually going to come up here and also what I think I'm going to do is come up and keep this rolling here. I'm going to hide non-video participants. So that way the screen's a little bit cleaner. That's a little tip right there. When you're using Zoom, you can actually just leave it so that the person who is speaking is the one that you're seeing on the screen. And let's get into this. Many of you already know me. I know that a number of you have been to my programs there on campus, where I have been leading the programs on time management, email management, better using your Microsoft Outlook. What we wanted to do here is, because of the unique circumstances that we're facing right now with the coronavirus outbreak, is build a program that will hopefully give you both tips on how you can work from your home office and still be productive, as well as maybe a few tips on how to run better virtual meetings. And related to the virtual meetings piece, I'm going to let you know that I'm going to be sharing a whole bunch of additional materials and video links for you after today's program. I've actually made videos of my best tips for using Zoom, my best tips for using GoToMeeting and GoToWebinar, and I actually found an outstanding tutorial that was made by the Microsoft Training Group on how to use the Teams video meetings function. That one's like a 45-minute video, and I'm going to give you links to all of this when today's program's over, so that you can basically take self-study if you'd like to get that much better at a lot of these skills. But a little backstory about me. I've actually had a head start on many of you. I have been running my business for 16 years. And when I started this business 16 years ago, I created a home office. I decided that rather than getting an actual office away from site, it would be better for me to work out of a home office. I've always had a dedicated space, and I've been working in the home office for 16 years. So I've learned a lot of things that work well when you're trying to work from a home office, as well as a few things that I'd maybe recommend that you shouldn't do. And you notice that, obviously when times are normal, I'm on the road about 60% of the time, but that other 40%, I'm working right here out of the house. And so I think there's several things that I can share with you that might speed up your ability to get your productivity. So let's dive in and make that happen. First thing I want you to do is invest in some infrastructure. And when I say infrastructure, one of the most important things that I would recommend that you do is set up a designated space. As you can see, I'm in what I call my basement bunker, and this is my home office. And I've actually set this up so that it is a totally workable space for me in my location. And the better you can set up a designated space, I think the more likely it is you'll get the better productivity faster. Now, one of the interesting things is my wife, she works at a local company. They decided to make everyone work from home like they're at the university. And the very first thing we did is we found another designated space for her. She's upstairs in our guest room she's got a window, but we set up a desk and we got her the stuff that she needed. One of the things that we did, which was sort of funny, after they closed their offices, we went back out with permission and we stole her chair because the chairs we had here weren't fitting her well, and she was starting to already get backaches just even working a day or two with the chairs we had in the house. She had an ergonomically designed chair. We went and stole it. Now, we didn't really steal it, we borrowed it. She's gonna take it back when we get back to normal time, but we adjusted the desk, we adjusted the layout of the computer, we adjusted the ergonomic chair, we got her set up. Now, what's interesting is right now, I'm sort of in the studio mode, and as you can see, I got lights coming from the fronts and the sides, and I've got a higher desktop, like shelving unit to hold my computer for doing the session. My normal desk is a couple feet over to the side, and so I've actually set up a bit of a video studio in here, which gives a view of the bookshelf and the posters behind me. But I've got my actual desk over here to the side because I'm using this dual purpose. I'm doing webinars where you can see me on the screen, but I'm also using this as a workspace, and I've just made it a very comfortable place. If you can, make it private, make wherever this place is private, because, you know, then you can focus, and let your family know. Now, here's an interesting thing. Let's talk about this a little bit. Family. I know many of you might have children at home. And here's the thing. I get it, especially if you've got younger kids. You know, if you've got kids that are, you know, newborn up to about 7 or 8 years old, they're going to be coming in. And you might even need them in the room with you to keep an eye on them, depending on what's going on with your spouse's situation, if you even have a spouse, and, you know, sort of keeping an eye on the kids. Just let people know. Understand, this is a weird time. This is a really weird time. And so, you know, as an employer, I would say, understand it's weird. People are trying to do their best if they are working from home, but especially those with the smaller kids, you got to give them a little more leniency. The one thing I would say is if you're jumping onto a virtual meeting, you know, let everybody know, hey, my kids are here. I might be a little distracted, and I'm going to mute my line so you don't hear the kids in the background. You know, now if you've got older kids, I've got 2 teenagers, they get it. And I've told them, I said, when I'm down doing a live webinar, when I'm recording something, I give them a heads up. I let them know what's going on. And I said, it better be on fire or flooding before you come get me. And so they've been really good. They've actually been a help. One of the things that I put down here, your dogs don't care. They don't. Your dogs are going to bark if they have a reason to bark. And, you know, just know that. Now, related to that, I actually tell my kids, you know, when they're home, when I'm home, in this situation, I say, can you keep an eye on the dogs? And if they start barking, can you just stop them from barking? But let me give you a couple other tips. This is sort of funny. I've been leading webinars now for more than 10 years here out of my home office. And one of the things I do, a few things to keep those dogs from at least reducing the risk of the dog barking. I actually have a sign that I put on my front door. And the sign says, please do not ring doorbell or knock on door, program recording in process. And I put that out there because, you know, the UPS and FedEx drivers, their normal thing is come up, put the package on the door and hit the doorbell. And then they run away. They don't even stay. If they hit that doorbell, dogs go crazy. Well, I put the sign up there. They don't ring the doorbell. They just leave the package. The other thing that I do, which is sort of funny, is I close the front window blind so they cannot see out front to see if a dog is walking by. And I turn on the TV, usually to PBS Kids, and I turn it up loud enough that the dogs can't really hear what's going on outside. And so by doing that, it's not a perfect situation, but it's a better situation. It keeps the dogs a little bit more under control. So this is just some good tips to help you managing this stuff, especially if you're doing some of the online meetings and everything. The other thing is, you know, I'm talking about having a designated space, making it comfortable, making it private. You can flex. And when I say flex, here's what I mean. Last night, I was starting work on my new e-newsletter. I do a monthly e-newsletter. I wasn't in high productivity focus mode. So I grabbed my laptop that I'm doing this presentation on right now. I went up to the kitchen table and my family's moving around and I'm getting a little bit distracted, but I'm sort of slowly working on my e-newsletter while being part of the family and seeing out the window into the backyard, watching as the thunderstorms started to roll in. And here's the thing, I said, okay, I don't need to be 100% productive here. If I'm 50% productive, I'm good with that. But now I can go up and be a little bit more social. And so, you know, just be aware of what's going on when you're in your workspace. Do you really need to focus? Do you really need to keep it tight? That's when you want to try to get to a private, dedicated space if you possibly can. If not, you can move around a little bit. You know, one of the funny things that I do, I didn't even mention this in yesterday's program, I will actually go, when I have family home and the dogs, I will do client phone calls in my car in the driveway. I just go out, pull my car out of the garage, park it, turn it off, make the phone call. Because now I'm in a sound controlled, shielded area away from the family and kids. And hey, that works pretty well. Now, the other thing that I want you to do is think about your infrastructure. What are you going to use from your tech side to be able to be productive? And one of the things that I recommend is, did you bring your laptop from work? I bet many of you are actually on your laptop from work right now. That's great because that means you basically got all your software and everything you need. Some of you, maybe you didn't have the opportunity to grab a laptop or you're working from a desktop. Then you might want to set up a home computer. And the one question I'll ask is, do you have a privacy concern? And you might want to touch base with your IT support person if you're using a home computer to say, is there anything special I should do here? Should I have some sort of a VPN that I should be logging into? Should I get one of the third-party VPNs that you can install on the computer to have a more private access? And when I say VPN, that stands for Virtual Private Network. Some organizations actually have a company-based VPN that you can log into, and it makes it more secure. I would imagine that many of you are using Office 365. Maybe some of you have the Google Suite tools. You just want to think about this, and if there's any kind of a security issue, I would recommend that you follow up and talk to your IT team to see what you can do. The other question is there critical software that you need to be able to do your job? And do you need to get that software onto your computer? That might be a question that you have to think about too. Now, one major tip, second monitor. Now, in your primary workspace, here's what I want you to seriously think about. Having a second monitor. Now, like I said, 3 feet over here to the right is my main desk, and I'm looking at my second monitor over here right now. And I've actually set this up so that when I'm doing anything cross-referencing, pulling stuff from one document to another, doing research from one web page to another, pulling information from one spreadsheet to another. If I'm doing anything like that, I immediately try to move over and plug in my second monitor, which I actually have a docking station that I purchased that goes with my Dell computer. It's actually pretty cool. You just plug in the docking station, and what it does, which is pretty neat, second monitor immediately turns on, the sound system goes through the speakers, and my printer that's right here in my office, boom, it's connected. Everything's all set up, and all I have to do is plug in one USB port to do that. I think that docking station for my computer was like 100 bucks or something like that. And the monitor, actually, I took it from one of our old desktop computers and I just plugged it in, and it works fine. I actually didn't even have to buy a second monitor. I just took it from an old desktop that we were no longer using. The other thing that I would recommend is take a look at your internet situation. Because if you're going to be doing extensive work from home and your internet isn't great, you're probably going to have some issues in terms of being able to do the work that you need to do. It might be worth right now, at least for a short-term period of time, to take a look and see if you can get a better quality service. And now, when I say this, maybe you've been using a certain internet provider for a couple, 3 years now. Maybe it's time to shop around a little bit and see if you can get something for about the same price that gives you faster and higher bandwidth. What's interesting is, because I run my home business, I started this business, and for the first 7 or 8 years, I was using a DSL line. A couple, 3 years ago, we decided to get cable internet. But I kept the DSL line on because I do a lot of webinars, and I figured, well, if I've got the DSL and the cable, if one of them fails, which does happen, the other one, I could just quickly jump over to that and keep going. So I built that as a necessary backup. It came in super handy when my wife started having to work from home, because she's using the DSL while I'm using the cable to do this, and we're not competing for each other's bandwidth. And I will tell you, there's even another option right here. I've got Verizon, and I've got the 4G service with the hotspot. If I was in a real desperate strait, I could even turn off the cable and jump over to the hotspot on my smartphone to probably be able to do this program. And so I just want you to think about, what is it that you need to be able to do this work? And is there anything that you can do to maybe make it work a little bit better from a bandwidth perspective? Now, the other thing, I told you, I got the printer, copier, scanner, fax. That's right there. And what it is, like I said, it hooks right into the mobile hotspot. I actually have a second printer upstairs that's in the mini office with my wife that's a Wi-Fi printer, which means that I could print from anywhere on the property that's within the access to the Wi-Fi, and I can print from wherever that is. But this one actually hooks right into that mobile thing, and it's probably 10 years old, but I plugged it in, it's working, and so I keep using it. And so these are like the basic kinds of things that if you have this, it will allow you to feel like you've got your productivity. And adding on to that, let's talk about your phone. Now, this is sort of fun. I do a program called Smartphone Success, Terrific Tablets. This is a critical piece of that session. Take a look at this screen right here. This is a screenshot of my Android device. Now, you could set up a similar screen with your iPhone device, okay? And I call this my center productivity panel. And when I say center panel, here's what I mean. You know how most smartphones have 4 or 5 home screens? You can go a couple this way, a couple that way on your device. Well, what this is this, if you had 5 screens, this would be panel number 3 because it's dead in the middle. And so no matter where you're at on the device, 1 or 2 swipes, you're back to that center panel. And notice what I put on here. Let's first take a look at this. Take a look at this. Here's my domain-based email. There's my Office 365 email. There's my Gmail account. So I got my primary email tools right here. Calendar, contacts. I've got both Microsoft To Do, which is the app through Office 365 that syncs with your Outlook task list, as well as Gtask, the Google Task tool for Google users. And up here I've got Keep, which is Google's note tool, Evernote, and actually I need to add a new screenshot because I've also got the OneNote app now too, which is the Microsoft tool for note-taking. Wait a minute. Email, calendar, contacts, tasks, notes. Hold on a second. Check something here. Email, calendar, contacts, tasks, notes. Hey, notice I got a few emails more than normal here today for those of you there, but look, still white space. But let's go back to this real quick because that's Outlook. That's Google Suite all right there on this one panel. You've got your primary tools for doing the work you need to do that you're doing from Outlook or Google right here on this one screen. Wait though, there's more. Telephone, visual voicemail. Now what that is that's a service. It costs an extra couple bucks a month from Verizon. But what that does is it allows me to, I don't have to listen to the voicemail, I can read the voicemails. And I actually like that service because most of the time I don't have to pick up and listen to the message, I can just read it. Here's text messaging, obviously. Here is Google Duo, which is the Google video service comparable to Skype on Microsoft and comparable to FaceTime. The one nice thing I like about Duo is that compared to FaceTime, FaceTime requires 2 iPhones or an iPhone and an iPad. Google Duo you can get on any device, same for Skype. Notice that I also have my cloud storage, Drive, Box, and OneDrive. And so I can get access to my Google documents, my Microsoft documents and files, and I use Box primarily. I've been using it for a number of years. It's really good for file sharing with third-party clients that don't have the same systems that I have. Got my browser, got my calculator, I've got my file management tool, I've got eFax, which is a third-party remote fax tool. There are other faxing tools that are out there, but you can send and receive faxes, and you can even do PDF attachments to your faxes right off your device. And I've got Google Translate. Oh wait, and there's one more that I got. Look down here. I got this thing called Office Lens. This is thebomb.com. Let me explain to you what this tool is. It's an app by Microsoft. So it's part of the Office 365 suite, basically. What it does is it uses the camera on your phone, okay? And you can take any hard copy document or file that's in front of you, put your phone over the top of it. When you've got Office Lens open, it'll bring up your camera, which you'll see the document in front of it. It'll bring up an automatic sizing box, and you just sort of move the phone around until it's got the document sized properly. Then you hit commit, and you just made a PDF. It takes a picture of the document and turns it right into an active working PDF file. And if it's a multi-page document, you can just hit the plus key to get every single page before you hit commit to make multi-page PDFs. And now get this. Think about this. It's part of the Microsoft suite, which means you can set it up so that your outputs from this automatically save over here to OneDrive, which means you could then attach them to your task or calendar items in Microsoft Outlook, as well as access them for other uses. It's all integrated. I want you to think about what this one panel is right here. Think about this one panel. It's not just a computer. That's a 1992 Mint Office right there. Think about it. It's your email, it's your calendar, it's your Rolodex with your contacts, it's your task list from your planner, it's your copy machine, your fax machine, your scanner, it's your file cabinet, it's your notebook, it's your web browser. It's your phone. It's everything. And here's the beauty of this. If you got your phone set up like this with this suite of apps or something comparable for your device, you do like 95% of the work that you're doing on a computer right here on your phone. And that means that you've got some capabilities to get some really powerful stuff done when you're out away. You know, the nice thing is if you're having any issues with your technology, if you've got this set up as a backup, you can still do most of your work right here off the device. And by the way, one little interesting thing about this, let me share something. You can actually get the Zoom app or I believe the GoToMeeting app or the Microsoft Teams app for your phone, which means that you could do your virtual meetings and chats by your phone. Now, let me show you one little tool that I might recommend you get. My wife got me one of these for Christmas. See what this is? It's a phone stand. And my phone can actually fit right into this clip right here like this. And the beauty of that is that I could actually set this up to the side and hold my meeting right here on this if I'm not actually going to be doing presentations. If it's just a video chat or video call, I can set this up. That way I can be hands-free and I can just enjoy the discussion and be part of it. So, you know, that was just something, I think it was like 25, 30 bucks. Totally worth it if you're doing a lot. Plus, it's really nice when you're doing the Netflix binge on the side when the kids have taken over the television. You don't have to hold your darn phone. Some good little tips there. And related to that, I put in this slide. I just want to have you have this information. This sort of relates to what I just shared about that screen. Depending on whether you're using Microsoft Office 365 or Google Suite or both, I know some of you might be using Office at work and Google Suite for your personal stuff. What I've done is I've given you a list of basically the primary tools that I'm recommending for what you're doing. Plus up here in the corner, notice that I put up LinkedIn because I actually think LinkedIn is the best tool for staying in touch with your broader professional network. And so what I've been encouraging people to do for years is don't just put their contact information into Outlook or Google because people change jobs, people move, it happens a lot. You want to really stay in touch with people, connect with them on LinkedIn because even if they change jobs or move and they forget to send you the email telling you they made that change, LinkedIn could be your source for staying in touch with people. And then, of course, there's Zoom, there's GoToMeeting, there's Teams, there's FaceTime, there's Google Duo. There's even my kids are using this app called House Party. And I tell you what, it's cool because what you can do is you can jump on a house party call and see 5 or 6 people. I think it goes up to 8 people all at once. So, and it's fully interactive. It's just people talking. It's like you're all sitting at a table together. It's a pretty cool app. You know, so just something that you can take a look at. So think about building the suite of tools on your devices and having the comparable tools that you can access through your PC, your computer, so that you've got this stuff talking to each other. You know, and one of the things that came out of this, which is really interesting, my wife brought this up. You know, she's been working from home for close to a month now after, you know, we had the shutdown. She said, you know, it hasn't been as difficult as I thought it might be because one of the things that we're doing is we're using Zoom and Teams to have all these interactive human meetings and discussions. And, you know, one of the things that I would recommend is utilize these tools. As you saw when we did the startup of today's program, we had, you know, to where people could see each other. That just makes this feel not nearly as, what would you say, cloistered and lonely. you still got your connections. So utilize these tools. I've actually been doing a ton of Zoom and Facebook calls with my parents because I can't go see them right now. And also a bunch of my friends. I've actually been more in touch with some of my friends since this started than I was before this because we're all trying to reconnect socially using these tools. So, you know, you don't have to be out on an island all by yourself here. The last thing I want to sort of say about just sort of basic infrastructure is just get your supplies. You know, and a lot of this stuff you could actually order online so it gets delivered to your front porch, which means you don't have to, you know, a lot of these delivery tools from like, you know, Staples or Office Max or Amazon, you can just leave them the instructions, leave it on your porch. Then you can go out. What we've been doing is going out with either a Lysol spray can or Clorox wipes and wiping everything off before you bring it into the house. And, you know, just make sure you got the tools you need to be able to do basic stuff. And if you need the basic stuff, do the basic stuff. Now, one little point I want to make out here is this thing. You can order banker boxes. And let me tell you where this might be needy. Let's say you're working from home for a while. Let's say it gets extended a few more weeks. what you could do is take any paper output that you have, put them into your files or folders. These banker boxes are designed that you can build them yourself, and then they fit file folders perfectly. And you could build up what you're working on while you're away from the office into that banker box. Then it's super easy to transport into your office when you decide to go back to the office. And so I would just say that that might be a super easy way for you to be able to take whatever work you're generating while you're on the work from home basis to get it back into the office when it's done. And the nice thing about it is then you can keep using it. Let's say you got a project you're working on at work and you want to do some work on it at home over the weekend. You can take that banker box and just toss everything in there and bring it home. So just a handy little tool. I actually use this for my accounting every year, and I'm just finishing up the accounting for 2019 that I've handed off to my tax accountant. That banker box, which has that stuff, is going to go into storage. And now I'm building a new banker box for my 2020 accounting. So just some things that you can do. And then, you know, one last little thing, make it a pleasant place. You know, I don't know if you can see this. I'm a National Geographic nut. I got my entire set of National Geographics back here. And one of the things that was neat when we moved into this house, the previous owner was also a bit of a National Geographic nut. He lined the whole top of the office with maps from National Geographic. I said, oh, sold. Buy the house. But then what I've done is I've put posters and such around. It just gives me a nice little visual something to look at when I need a moment to, you know, give myself a little mental break. And the other thing is, can you have a good window? And if you happen to make your place, now here's my situation. I call it my basement bunker. I don't have a window here. But one of the things that I've learned to do is, let's say I've got that second monitor, but I'm not actively using it for cross-referencing. I'll bring up a webcam. And I'll tell you what, you want to have a big difference. You're in deepest, darkest February. You know, what do they call February? The big gray bucket of suck. Deepest, darkest February. You know, you can grab webcams from like New Zealand and Hawaii, and it's just showing you like the ocean. That's my window. I use that as a window. I just bring up a webcam, drag it over to the second screen, and that way I've got something that's a visual. Just make sure it's not so compelling that you're staring at it all the time rather than doing your work, but it's nice to have a little visual break there. Have good lighting, invest in it. They now have the LEDs that have the more warm human glow. I actually have those installed on the front lights that are here in front of me so that it's not bright white, but it's more that natural color. You know, look into music services. I actually, you know, it's funny, I got an old 80s boombox over here because I still have some of my old 80s cassette tapes. And so I still use that to sometimes play that, but I've also got obviously access to Pandora and my Apple iTunes account. But the other thing that I've done is there's a third-party tool that you might want to take a look at called Focus at Will. And the Focus at Will is a subscription music service. So it does have a fee. But one of the interesting things about it is all of the music they select, which goes across a bunch of different genres. So it'll have the kind of music you like. Everything they select is music that is specifically designed that when it's playing in the background, it helps you maintain focus. You don't get distracted by it. The other thing, you're working from home. Your dog could be at your feet. Your cat could be in the room with you. Just be careful if you're going to hold a virtual meeting or a telephone call, because they will pick the most inopportune time to just go off. It's gonna happen. And so I would recommend that you maybe get them out of your place and follow the tips we shared earlier if you're going to do a call. Or, you know, just tell people, hey, my dog's here. And then mute your line when you're not speaking in case the dog decides to bark. And I already talked a little bit about the virtual studio. We're gonna talk about more about that later. But like I said, I've just set it up so that whatever you see in the background is something that isn't too messy. And I've got the lighting set up. I actually brought in standing lamps that are in front of me so that I've got forward-facing light so that it makes me look better. I'm not using the top lights because then you get too much top-down light. And when you see the Zoom video file that I'm going to share with you after today's program, you'll see what I mean in terms of how it makes such a huge difference with lighting. So just take a look at that and we'll see. And the last thing that I think I want to talk about, I know we're getting into where I want to make the switch fairly soon into the discussion about running better virtual meetings. I also want you to think about sort of your workable space. And now, here's the thing. You may not be able to do what I've done with my home office here. I've dedicated a whole room of my house for this. Some of you are just going to take a corner because you're not expecting to be there that long out of a guest bedroom or something like that. I get it. But what I want you to do is think about, what do you need to be productive and effective in that designated space when you set up that designated space. Let's take a look at this. This is not Space Invaders, by the way. I know it looks like one. Sorry. But here's what it actually is. There's my chair. This is my office chair. That's my laptop that I'm doing this on right now, which is normally 3 feet to the side, hooked into the docking station that automatically brings up that second monitor. Over here to the side is that printer I told you about, my copier faxer printer that is hooked right in. Up top, I've got my speakers and my boom box. I used to have all of my technical manuals for my software there, but where can you get all that now? Yeah, that's right, that's all online. So I've switched it out with my boom box and pictures of my vacations, my wife, my kids, my dogs. Better, like it. Over here, this is a pull-out file box that when I can pull it out, it's got my active clients and projects, or active clients and prospects, that is. This one's active projects, activities, events, and my accounting files. Both of those are pull out right there next to my chair so that I can quickly get access to the stuff that I need. Now notice this, what I just talked about. I'm using my laptop the most. Second monitor and printer are used frequently, as are these files. They're closest to me. Look over here to the side. Proximity equals productivity. Now out to the side, I have like storage boxes and files, some inventory, packing materials when I need to do anything shipping. I've also got back here some additional stuff that's down here on the bottom of the bookshelf, including some video tools and things like that. The stuff I use a little bit less is a little further out. Okay, right up here on the desk, I've also got some of my office supplies, pens, staplers, scissors, you know, that kind of stuff. The stuff I use less, like the cutting board for the paper, is back here on this file. And over to the side, I actually have a bigger copier printer that I'm only using for the big jobs. And I've actually set this one up close to me because if I just need a page, or I just need to scan a page or fax a page, boom, got it. This one is for when I have to do bigger jobs that require bigger printing. Now, I'm not saying most of you should be buying a big multi-function copier fax machine while you're working at home, because you're probably going to be back in the office sometime in the fairly near future. But remember, I'm running my business here. I'm trying to make it like a real business. What do you need to make it workable? What needs to be close to you so you can be more effective? And when I say that, here's the one thing I want you to think about. This strategy right here isn't just for your home office. When you get back to your normal workspace, when you get back to normal work again, when things get back to normal, I want you to walk into your office on day one you go back, and I want you to ask yourself this question. Okay, looking at this space, what can I move, change, rearrange to make this better and more functional and more workable and more productive? With that mantra, proximity equals productivity. Concentric circles, what you use most is closest. You can do that, you're going to have much better workable space. All right, by the way, I did this for one of my community college clients, and I used to do this exercise on a whiteboard. Had a guy in there who was an old military pilot. He walks up, he goes, "Give me your marker." He goes, "You know what you build here?" He drew this line. That's a cockpit. Make your workspace your cockpit for productivity. You know, just like a pilot would, you know, make it so where the stuff you need is right close and the stuff that you need less is a little further out, but everything's pretty close range so you can get what you need when you need it. All right. Another thing I want to talk about, now that we sort of got through infrastructure, you know what, this might be a good time to open up and ask if there's any questions. Natalie, any questions before I talk about the rituals and regimens?
It doesn't look like we've had any real questions. We've had some other apps being shared for the scanner type.
Okay, what other apps? I'd love to hear what people are suggesting.
One individual shared Adobe Scan, and somebody else shared Cam Scanner.
Yeah, and I've used Cam Scanner in the past. There's also another one that's called Scan to PDF. That Scan to PDF used to be my default, but when I tested the Office Lens tool, the quality of the scans was just quite a bit better. I don't know why, but the software gave me a much cleaner picture, and the PDFs were, they looked like they were done on a professional copier fax. And that's why I made the switch to Office Lens. And then the other beautiful thing about the Office Lens was the automatic ability to save it right into your OneDrive storage. But yeah, test them. You know, there's even, I think, if I'm not mistaken, there might be an app that you can get like CamCard that allows you to use your phone to do business cards. When you receive a business card, you hold your camera over it and it will take the information off the business card and import it right into your contact database. So that's probably worth checking out too. And I think they also have those little desktop scanners that you could look into that do sort of the same thing. You know, you can just drop a business card into it and it automatically converts it into contact for your database. So good tips. Yeah, good things. Anything else there?
Nope, that was all for now.
Okay, now this is a big deal. This slide is a really big deal. This is a weird time. And, you know, I'll tell you this, after 16 years of doing this work from home, you're going to do a lot better if you still try to follow basic rituals and regimens with your day-to-day life and work. You know, and when I say that, here's what I mean. You know, during the work week, get up, make your coffee, get down to your workspace, open up. Now remember, if you've been to my classes, I don't tell you to open with email. Open up your calendar, see what's going on today, look what's going on a few days in advance. Maybe block some time for your most important projects and maybe some of your personal stuff too. This is a weird time. We're going to talk about that more a little bit later, about blocking time for yourself. But block some time, maybe schedule some meetings, virtual meetings, Zoom, GoToMeeting, Teams. What do you need to talk about? Who do you need to talk about it with? Block some time for your key projects. One of the things that was on my list for last night, I was actually working on my e-newsletter and I blocked time on my calendar to do that work. What was interesting is I actually flexed my schedule yesterday because you saw how beautiful it was yesterday afternoon. I took a break starting at about 3:30 to take advantage of that, but I saw the weather forecast. I was actually playing weather yesterday and I knew the rain was going to come in. I said, well, I'm going to do my e-newsletter when the storms come in so I can get outside for a bit with my family and my dogs. You know, so that's one real nice thing about working from home is the ability to flex, but I still had a plan for the day and I planned my stuff. Block some time for yourself. You know, they say one of the biggest things you can do to reduce anxiety and stress is get some sort of exercise, even just getting out for a walk. Be thankful we live in a place where there is enough room to get proper social distancing. Make sure you do your social distancing. Set up times for breaks. Take a lunch break if you need to. You know, do that kind of stuff. Even target an end time for your normal work day. Sort of have a plan for how long you're going to work and when you're going to stop and stick to it. This will give you a semblance of normalcy. And the more normal you can make your work and your life right now, even though you're working from home, one, you're going to clearly be more productive, but two, it's going to give you a little bit more substance and predictability, which will reduce the inherent anxiety of a strange time like this. You know, and so, you know, it's interesting. I've had people tell me, I don't know how you do it. You've been working from home for all these years. I don't know if I could get my stuff done. And I said, well, one of the things that I've done is I've followed my strategies and my rituals, and it's made it feel like I'm working a real job here from home, which is what I am. The other thing, you know, we talked about email. You know, I'm not going to go through detailed deep because I know many of you have been to my program. And one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to send you some bonus materials and links to some YouTube PDFs or YouTube videos, that is, that talk about my Taming Email Decision Tree. You still want to do this process even from home. And if you remember, just very quickly, you get a new email, you decide what you need to do with it the first time you open it and read it. If it's quick, you handle it now. Remember, Ohio, only handle it once. If it takes more than a couple minutes, you convert it to task or calendar, possibly into your Outlook or Google Apps or onto your paper or sticky notes. You'll see a YouTube video that talks about this. And then once it's done, you file it or delete it. No place to file it. You make a place to file it, put it there. And you don't just follow this process for your emails, you do it for all inputs. Voicemail, snail mail, documents, e-documents, faxes, text messages, stacks, files, clutter. Run them through your decision tree and then plan to visit your inputs several times a day, but not nonstop. And you'll also get a tip that tells you how you can make your more important stuff pop so that you don't have to look at your email all the time. And I even have one of the tips that shows how you can automate and speed up some of your outgoing messages. You're going to have tips that give you all of this coming out of today's session in my bonus PDFs. So take a look at that and use that. But one of the key things is get yourself onto your normal regimens and try to follow that if you can, because it just makes it better. I came across this. I was on the treadmill doing a workout a couple of weeks ago, and I was watching a motivational video off of YouTube. There's some pretty good ones, by the way. And I came across this quote, and I just thought it was wonderful. I don't necessarily enjoy my rituals and regimens, but I certainly thrive on them. The more normal you can make things and the more structured you can make things in a crazy, unstructured time, the more that'll reduce the anxiety and make you feel like you're active and getting stuff done. So just try to set it up and make it work this way. Last thing I want to share on the work from home piece before we dive into the virtual meeting piece is just be human. This is a weird time. And for many of you, this might be the first time you've extensively done working from home. I want you to not beat yourself up too much if you're doing this. I'm hoping that some of these tips will allow you to be more productive and maybe speed up your productivity a little bit. But we've got to actually understand that this is a weird time. Now, some of you, because of your situation, maybe you have, maybe you're empty nester, kids are out of the house, or you don't have kids yet. You might be more productive. You've got less in-office distractions and interruption. People aren't stopping by all the time, causing you to be interrupted. Now you're getting more work done in a 6-hour day than you used to get done in a 10-hour day. Others of you who've got the small kids or family situations, they might get in the way. And here's the thing, give yourself a little bit of slack and understanding right now, understanding that, first things first, the most important stuff is taking care of yourself, taking care of your family, taking care of your health, because that is going to be what's best for you and your employer in the long run. Now these tips are to help you be more productive, but I would actually care more that you're taking care of yourself so that you can do this better in the long run. You can be productive, you can contribute right now. Some of you are going to be able to contribute and be more productive. Some of you may be a little bit less, but I think from an employer's perspective, that'll probably balance out. Keep practicing what I call active compartmentalization. And what that means is real simple. One of the things that I'm trying to do, I'm still doing my pretty much normal work days, even with what's going on here. I've been doing a lot of video processing development. I developed this new program here. One of the things that I've done is I've said, though, but I got to have an end time. I want to have dinner with my family most nights if we can. And one of the things that I'm trying to do is what they call quality time versus quantity time. And everything I've read is, I've got 2 teenagers. Honestly, they're sort of at the point where they'd rather be up doing a house party with a bunch of their friends, or my one daughter's taking her online dance classes because they can't go to the studio now. But what I'm trying to do is at least once a day, most every day, give my wife and my kids full focus. No phones, no computer, nothing. I'm also trying to do that for my dogs too, although I think, boy, dogs are going to have a real problem when this thing gets over, because they're like, everybody's home all the time. It's wonderful. It's not going to be wonderful for them, and they're going to have a rude awakening here when we get back. But practice that compartmentalization. And the one thing I'd say is, if you're a supervisor, please be conscious of what's going on right now. I'll move this up here a little bit. Be conscious. A lot of your employees right now are suffering from anxiety. They might even have health concerns. They possibly have friends or family that might actually have this, and they're trying to get through this. They have children at home. Maybe one of their spouse has been laid off or even has become unemployed. So they've got these extra stressors. Just be aware of that. But remember, some of your team might be more productive, some less. It's going to balance out. Give some leeway here, especially if they're good people. Now, individuals, take breaks. Be careful about this. The one thing I strongly recommend, my wife nails me on this. She goes, stop looking at the news. The news will stress you out. She's right. I try to check in 3 times a day, but I don't want to be looking at it nonstop. Also with social media, be careful. Cats, kids, and conspiracies. You got to be careful with the news and the social media right now, because it can be overwhelmingly negative, stressful, and anxious. some of the best tips I said, live small. There was that old famous Buddhist quote, before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. I sort of converted that to my mantra for this virus. Before coronavirus, chop wood, carry water. After coronavirus, chop wood, carry water. You still get up, live day to day, live smaller, enjoy the smaller part of it, and take care of yourself. If you can do this, then you're going to come through this in a better place. I'm actually saying, this may be, I travel so much. One of my problems is I eat too much airport food. And I've probably put on 5 to 10 pounds in the last 3 years because of that. I got a break. It's my chance to maybe see if I can get myself back in shape a bit again. And I'm going to take advantage of it. This is, find those little things. I also got a couple little home projects that I might have a chance to tackle that I've been not able to get to. Now maybe this is my chance. Make goals like that. Little goals, simple goals, daily goals. Make them happen. All right. I think this is another good time to open up for Q&A before we dive into the piece on team meetings. Natalie, any other comments or things that have come in before we go into the
no questions. No questions right now. Just some
Okay.
comments about parents that are now teachers, but I think that's a challenge many are facing.
Yeah, anything in there that you want to share about that? The parents that are teachers, sort of what that comment might have related to. I'm interested to hear.
Yeah, GVSU actually has some great resources through the charter schools that they have out there for faculty and staff and general community members that are now parents and teachers. So just sharing that those exist out there.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah, and for those of you that are doing this stuff, some of those tools might actually be good even if you're not a teacher, to help you get better at knowing how to be more productive, especially with the video conferencing tools and tools like the whiteboard tools and things like that. I do cover those briefly in the bonus videos that you're going to get after today's program, but it might be worth taking a look at some of that stuff because, it might actually enhance your virtual meetings with your staff or team. So, be aware that some of those tools are pretty good. Let's dive in now and get into the second piece of this. Now, I have to share something right here. It's 2:20. We're scheduled to go to 3 o'clock. So I got 40 minutes to get through this segment. And one of the things that I want to share is that I actually did a full video that's about 45 minutes long just on this segment that we're going to do. And so I'm going to give you the link to that video that I recorded for another client last week that you can use if you want to go even deeper into this after today. So just be aware that you're going to have an additional resource for this part 2 of today's program. And I'm also going to give you video links, like I said, specifically for tips for Zoom, for GoToMeeting, GoToWebinar, and for Microsoft Teams. Now, the Teams one I didn't create. I'm actually going to be creating some videos about my favorite things about Teams coming up very shortly. But the one that I found was specifically created by the Microsoft Training Group. It's a 45-minute video all about hosting meetings, inviting people to meetings, and using Teams for better meetings. It's one of the highest rated videos I've ever seen on YouTube. So it's really solid. And so if you're using Teams, I think that is your first step to getting to using Teams for your meetings much better. So take a look at that bonus material when I get it to you. But let's dive into this piece. Once again, I'm this guy. Hey, let's try this right here real quick. All right. But I am obsessed with the better use of time and productivity. They've called me the totally obsessed time management guy, email sanity expert. But one of my biggest pet peeves throughout my entire professional career has been wasted time meetings. Meetings that are poorly run, meetings that take too long, meetings that don't accomplish what they need to accomplish. Meetings that turn into a complaint session, but there's another word for complaint. And I've worked Fortune 50. I was at Procter & Gamble in the corporate headquarters for a couple of years. I worked major university, Michigan State, go green. We would have won the national title this year, I'm telling you. And also nonprofit, private foundation, small for-profit company, my own company. I hope my own company, the meetings have been pretty good actually, but most every other type of company I've been to, I've seen wasted time meetings that were not a good use of people's time and energy. But I will also tell you, in almost every place, I've seen a few exceptions. People that held really good meetings. And I did a compare and contrast. I built a program several years ago which is all about running better staff and team meetings. It didn't really have this virtual component. But what I wanted to do with this is take some of the key learnings out of that better staff and team meetings and overlay it with some of the tips about how to run better virtual meetings and build this new little segment. So we're going to dive into this and give you some tips on how to make that work better too. Now, one of the things that I want to share with you is a lot of the same rules apply. Now, I want to talk about something here. I'm going to actually jump ahead in the slides because right here, notice the very first question I put in, formal meeting. Now, when I say formal meeting, here's what I mean. You're sending out an agenda 1 to 3 days in advance to a group of 6 to 8 or more people. You've got several attendees, you've got a formal agenda, you've got a goal or objective of what you're trying to get out of the meeting, you've got talking points. That's like a real everybody in the conference room meeting. I'm gonna do a little sideways right here. You know, one of the things I think is really good about these tools, Zoom, GoToMeeting, Teams, is the ability to do what's called a quick impromptu. So I'm gonna jump out of this slide and I wanna jump far forward. We're going to go down here to, let's see, yeah, this one right here. 1 Minute Manager model. Remember that book, The 1 Minute Manager, back from the late 1980s? Ken Blanchard, Spencer Johnson. I want to be these guys. The book's like 85 pages. It's in a 20-point font. You can read it in 20 minutes and they sold like 35 million copies, you know. I want to be those guys. But here's the thing, it had a really critical strategy way back in the late 80s. We have too many formal meetings, the kinds I just described. And what they said is that workplaces probably would work better with less big formal meetings and more quick impromptus. Now, what's a quick impromptu? You're working during the day, issue, problem, opportunity, situation pops up. Something you need to deal with in real time. You can't wait till next Tuesday at 2 for the normal staff meeting to do this. You got to deal with it now. Jump on a Zoom, jump on a Teams, jump on a GoToMeeting and get 2 or 3 people together and explain what the issue, opportunity, situation is. You're focusing on one thing typically. The meeting takes 10 to 15 minutes. It's not an hour. It's 10 to 15 minutes. You focus on one thing and you basically do a huddle. You say, here's what popped up. What do you think we should do? Okay, are we in agreement? Okay, well, Joe, you're going to do this. Jill, you're going to do this. Sally, you're going to do this. And I'm going to do this. Let's all get back together by end of day and do the same thing again. I actually think that might be one of the best uses of this technology. And it doesn't have to be a work from home strategy. You could do this in the office. You know, I know, especially if you're working in a place which has distributed offices and people, you don't need to call everybody together into a conference room. Jump on a Zoom and handle that one thing right now. Get everybody on the same page, get a plan, distribute the work, go. Run your play, so to speak, and then get back together later and see what happens. I actually think this might be the best way to do this. And the beauty of this is that if you're doing this actively and regularly, maybe you don't need so many of the big formal meetings covering 6, 7, 8 times that 6, 7, 8 agenda items that causes that fatigue that comes from meetings that run way too long. More of these might lead to less of the formal meetings, which will make your formal meetings shorter and work better. And this just makes it an interactive environment where you don't have to wait a week to get something done. I really like that model. All right, now let's go back though. Let's go back to where we were talking about those formal meetings back here. All right, let's talk about this. By the way, hey, want a cool little PowerPoint tip? Check this out. So you can see I'm in the PowerPoint management mode where I could, you know, work on my PowerPoint. Watch this. I want to switch to presentation mode very quickly. I'm going to hold down the Shift key, hold down the Function key, hit F5. Ooh, that takes you right into presentation. Probably one of the best tips of the day. Let's talk about this. So you got the goal, you got the outcome, you've got specific agenda points. With the agenda points, you actually have listed who's going to be talking about what. Good tip. You've got the right people and only the right people. Let's talk about this for a second. I've seen a problem that has plagued most meetings that I've been through. It's a double-sided coin that causes a lot of meeting problems. Here's the double-sided coin. Too many people are invited, which makes the meetings run too long and too many participants, too many cooks in the kitchen. Simultaneously, maybe the critical person who really needs to be there, who has the critical institutional or project or topic knowledge, is not in the room. And the meeting doesn't go well because you just got the wrong cast available. You've either got too many people causing, and by the way, I'll tell you this, you work in a place where you've got intelligent people and you got too many people in the room, the meeting's gonna run long for one simple reason. That, well, I'm here, they must want me to talk. And so everybody's gotta get out their talking points, right? You wanna make that meeting, meeting as small as you can make it to be as fully useful as you can make it without being too tight that you don't have the critical resources. That's the fine art of the meeting invitation. And so you want to make sure the critical people are there, but no more than the critical people if necessary. I always tell people, you know, if you're ever invited to a meeting and you're looking at the agenda and going, why do they want me in the room? Don't think it, ask it. and if they say this code word, this is a code word. If you ever hear somebody say to you, oh, I just wanted to be inclusive, that's your reason for being invited, that means you're optional. You're an optional asset for the meeting. And if you're crazy busy, maybe you can just argue, hey, listen, I don't think I have a critical reason for being there. Maybe you could just tell me what happens after the meeting. Now, you can play the politics game too. You can say, well, you know what, if I get to that meeting, then I can get my input in there to maybe affect this thing, even though I'm not the critical resource. I mean, I get it. You know, sometimes you just want some FaceTime with people. I get it. But just think carefully about, you know, these invitations. Now, one of the things I put up here is called courtesy rules. You know, a lot of people, what they do is they actually have their team get together and talk about what makes good courtesy in a normal in-office meeting. You know, things like be on time, be prepared, turn off your phones, you know, be professional, okay to, you know, okay to be critical with ideas, but don't be critical of people. You know, try to always find positive outcomes, try to get your meetings done on time so people get back to work, you know, all that kind of stuff. I mean, that's just good stuff that you might want to have. Some things I might add if you're doing courtesy for online meetings. Log in 5 to 10 minutes early because it takes a few minutes to clear the login process. If you're not speaking, mute your line and make sure you turn off your phone ringer. And one of the other things I'll tell you is that if you are on camera, if you're on camera, people can see you doing this. What does that say in terms of your attention to the meeting and the people that are around you? Try to keep your focus on the camera and the screen. The other thing I will tell you is if your mic's open, they can hear you typing. They can hear it. And that right there tells them that maybe you're not fully engaged too. Unless, of course, you're the designated meeting note taker. We're going to talk about that in a minute. Now, I talk about here about taking it to another level. Let's jump into this and talk about this. One of the best meeting leaders I ever worked with was somebody I worked with at Procter & Gamble in the corporate headquarters. He was the team leader of a major project I was involved with at Procter & Gamble. He did something back then. This was more than 20 years ago. He did something back then that I have rarely seen anyone do, even up to today. And you're going to understand why he was so good at running his meetings right now. Listen to what he did. Not only whenever he was doing a formal meeting would he get the agenda out 24 to 48 hours in advance minimum every time. And that agenda would say, here's what the goal is of the meeting. Here's what our objective is walking out the door. He would have that. He did something very unique. He would have each agenda item listed of what was going to be talked about to meet the goal or objective. He would also have in parentheses behind the agenda item the names of the people that might be speaking on that topic. And then here's when he went to a whole new level. He would actually print the agenda and walk around to every person that was going to have a speaking role in the meeting. He would walk up and say, now notice, Joe, you're going to be talking about the first agenda item. I want you to be prepared to talk about this and this, and can you please bring this set of information with you to support the discussion? Oh, and by the way, remember, Jill's going to be in the room. She's going to ask this question, so I need you to be ready for that question with a good response. Whoa! Think about that. He would go around to every single speaking resource in the meeting and tell them how to be better prepared, what they were going to be talking about, what they needed to bring with them, and what questions they might anticipate. How do you think his meetings went? Now, does that require a lot of extra work on the front end? It does require some extra work on the front end, but here's the thing. He was genius. His meetings ran so well, he very rarely got the output work coming out of them because everybody was so prepared. And thus, he was leading. Most of the work went to the other people. He didn't end up with a lot of the work because the meetings sort of ran themselves. So I just want you to think about this model. It's a brilliant model. Now, what could you do in this age? You could still do your phone calls or your quick little Zooms one-on-one with each speaking person before the formal meeting. Hey, let's jump on a Zoom and talk about what you're going to talk about in the meeting and what preparation you need to do. There's no reason you can't use these tech tools to do just that right now. The other thing is get out virtual invites, get out the instructions, make sure people got everything they need, and try to really work on that, logging in 5 to 10 minutes early to make sure everything works. And one thing that I would recommend that you might want to pick one of these tools. GoToMeeting, Zoom, Teams, WebEx, whatever it is. Adobe, they got an online meeting platform. Whatever tool you choose, get your team to use that tool consistently and regularly. Check them all out to see if any of them have a critical feature that you would really like to use. And then one of your meetings should be just getting everybody onto the meeting and practicing. Let them play. Get in and test doing logins, connections, invitations. Show people how to test the audio and video. One thing that we learned about Zoom is that Zoom's a bit weird. Most meetings, when you log in, the audio is automatic. Zoom, you gotta click join audio. That's a different little thing. That's the kind of thing that you need to test and get good at. Test doing the video sharing, test doing document sharing. One of the things that's super cool about this, let's just do that right now. Watch this. I can pop out here and I could pop into an Excel spreadsheet. And let's go into File, New, blank workbook. And now I can open this thing up and let's bring this to, let's move this over here and move this to a full screen. And now I could start working on a spreadsheet with 2 or 3 other people. Actually, before we did the session today, Natalie and I were talking about a couple little tweaks from yesterday's program. I was going in real time into the presentation and we actually added a couple things right here on this slide. She was there, I could see her, we were talking to each other and we were doing a live edit to this PowerPoint right before today's presentation started, which means you are smarter than everyone that took yesterday's program. All right, and so that's one of the really cool things is the ability to collaborate. Test the chat, test the Q&A features, test the polling features. If you're doing like a live meeting, one of the neat things, you got more than 7 or 8 people, you could do polls where you bring up a question on screen and everybody can vote. That makes it much more interactive, kind of thing that you want to play with. One of the things that was cool about Zoom and some of these other tools is that you can keep people in a waiting room. And what that means is while you're prepping to get ready for your meeting to start, as they're logging in 5 to 10 minutes early, they're coming in and they're seeing a screen that says your meeting will start at this time. Please hold for the meeting leader, etc. And that allows the meeting preparer to be working in the background, getting everything ready while you're there ready to be there on it for an on-time start. It also gives you the chance to troubleshoot stuff. Goofy things can happen. I'll tell you one thing that's goofy right now is so many people are utilizing these tools and all this bandwidth that I know there was quite a few problems with WebEx a couple weeks ago. I think their servers just got overwhelmed with too many people using them. And one of the things that we added in today was this thing called Plan for Redundancies. As we started this program today, one of the things we realized we probably should have done for yesterday's program, luckily it didn't come into play, I sent Natalie a copy of this full presentation in full PowerPoint mode. I also sent myself the login instructions into the email on my phone. Now let me explain why. Let's say my video feed crashes from my internet or the service provider. I could then quickly call in on the device and use the audio option to get back to the audio of this live program, while Natalie takes over hosting and brings up the presentation to this slide because she's got it there and ready. That's called planning for redundancies. And one of the things that you might want to do is play around with having two people both with the ability to be running the meeting in case one person gets bumped or dropped from their service or their internet while a live session is taking place. And, you know, these kinds of things just allow these things to work better. You know, one of the things that we talked about with last week is just be ready. You know, with so many people hitting these tools right now, it's very possible you could get bumped out. And if you get bumped out, have a plan to get right back in without having to kill the entire meeting. It can happen right now. You know, and then I want to do this. I didn't fix my little typo. I showed everybody yesterday. I need a second, an end paren right there. Do you even need a meeting? I like to bring this up. First thing you should be doing is just asking yourself a question. Is what we need to talk about something so clear and obvious, what it is we need to do, and maybe we don't even need to have a meeting? Maybe we could just send an email or maybe a PDF from a PowerPoint or a Word doc that explains exactly what we're going to do and what our next steps are, who's going to do what. And I'll tell you this, you know, most people would rather not attend too many meetings because they want to get their work done. So the less meetings you can have people go to, that's great. Hey, by the way, one little thing, you know what you can do now? You make little videos. I do that all the time. I'm making little YouTube videos. These tools you can record. You could actually have a meeting in Zoom or in GoToMeeting or GoToWebinar by yourself to make a video that you can create on your computer that then you could post so people could go watch the video of your communication. So, you know, think about, do we really need to have a meeting? Now, I want to share something. This is a funny quote. I came across this not too long ago. It cracked me up when I read it. It said, I just went to another meeting that could have been an email. There's two sides to this, though. I want to flip this. Have you ever had this situation happen? I just read an email that should have been a meeting. It can go both ways. And one of the tips that I recommend, I'll tell you what, here's a recommendation that I've had for a lot of people. And almost no teams or groups that I've worked with have actually had this meeting. But it's a really smart meeting. How about having a meeting with your core work group or team on whatever key project that you're on, where what you discuss is simply which communication tools should you use under which situations? When should you send an email? When should you send a text message? When should you use IM? When should you pick up the phone? When should you go find the person? When should you do a quick one-on-one or two-on-one Zoom? When should you call a formal meeting? When should you do a formal teleconference or video conference? What tools should you use when and why? And the whole goal of this is to get people to have sort of a set of common rules about how to use their communication tools. Because if you don't have that meeting, I promise you, people on your team are going to be all over the place. And I'll just give you one example. This is the car crash. Let's say you got somebody on your team that uses email like Instant Messenger. They're checking it and looking at it 35 times a day. You got another person on your team that by design tries to only check their email 5 or 6 times a day to have larger blocks of time to get their focused work done. They are on the same team working with each other. That's a car crash, isn't it? And it's going to happen. And I promise you this, they both will absolutely insist they're doing it right. Am I right? But if you talk it through and you get people to understand the suite of tools that you have at your disposal and what's the right time and when to use those, and you get common sort of cultural agreement on how to do that, it's going to make it work so much better. All right? So that's just one of the strong. Hey, by the way, how about another meeting that you have about how to run better meetings? You could take this deck and then have another meeting about, hey, let's do some talking about how we can make our meetings work better. You know, this could be the basis for it. And then you have your own follow-up discussion when you're done. All right. Hey, this is fun. Let's try this. Let's jump down here. All right. What about dress code? Now notice this. I am in my home office. Now I could have dressed over here like Mr. Professional guy. But the reason I feel like personally, you know, when you're doing these things, it's a little contrived from a home office to be all fancy. It just feels awkward to me. I don't know. By the way, one thing, don't leave the mouse right over your face. But here's the thing. I feel it's a little bit contrived. So I tend to dress more of a normal, casual, but not, you know, I'm not in pajamas. I'm not in pajamas. I'm not in swim shorts. I'm not wearing sandals. At least you can't see that. And here's the thing. This might be a good discussion. Should you have a discussion with your team members about what makes good dress code and actually bring that in? And, you know, I'd say if you're working out of your office, you're probably business casual to business professional when you're doing meetings from normal work, but maybe you're a little more flexible when you're doing stuff from home. Now, what if you got somebody calling in from outside? They might be dressed like this, but one thing I would recommend, if you're dialing in from outside using your phone to join a virtual meeting, I would strongly recommend that the person that's outside, make sure they mute their mic, because I promise you this, your mics on your phones especially pick up all the wind noise. And so it'll be a major distraction for people. You got to mute your mic and only open it when you can. Try to get yourself someplace where maybe you're not going to be in a full windy situation as best you can. Now, you're in the car. Okay, I got my shades on. Maybe you take off your shades to be a bit more personal if you're going to do this from the car, and pull over and park. Nobody wants to watch you die in the car crash because you're doing a live Zoom while you're driving. All right. And last thing, don't be overly casual too. You know, unshaven dude with goofy clothes, you know, seriously, you know, try to, you know, get up, take the shower, and, you know, look at least reasonably presentable when you're going to do one of these things. You know, but have a discussion so that you're on the same page about this too. Natalie, any questions right now? Just sort of want to check.
Yeah, so we did have one, Randy, about the difference between utilizing a video meeting or phone meetings, and etiquette around keeping cameras on or off.
Yeah, I think that's a very good question. Like I said, I think in the situation we're in right now, if at all possible, I would use a video meeting. And the reason is you get that interaction, and these tools are good. You can use them. Counterpoint though, sometimes it might be easier for people to just do a telephone situation. And here's when I really recommend you consider doing telephone. One is if you know anybody on your team because of where they live or where they're located or where they might be, has lower quality internet access. Maybe the only internet they have is through their phone. Maybe they're far enough out that it's going to be difficult. Then it might be better just to do a teleconference and get everybody on the phone together. The other thing is that if you're doing a video meeting, you start getting a lot of distortion. Maybe what you do is, like, let's say the internet service is going bad. Maybe you say, hey, everybody, let's jump to a teleconference and make that happen instead so you can do the telephone call. I am a big fan of these video tools because I think it makes it a lot more personal. But let's say it's going to be short and brief. It's going to be just a 5-minute discussion. Maybe it's more work than you need to log into a video meeting. Maybe you can just quickly jump onto a 3 or 4 person quick little teleconference, handle that one little thing, and do it that way instead. You know, so just keep that in mind. Still, same rules apply. If you're not talking, try to maybe learn how to mute yourself so that you can keep background and feedback noises down. You know, I do think though, with the weird situation we're in right now, I would probably have a bias toward the video option just so people can have that face-to-face interaction in this weird time. Counterpoint, sometimes I encourage people, especially first thing in the morning, I'll encourage my clients or customers, hey, let's just jump on a quick little teleconference. That way I can show up to the meeting wearing a ball cap and a t-shirt and nobody can see me. So, you know, I think that's a good discussion point to have. Anything else on that, Natalie?
No, I think that was the only one right now, but a great question.
Okay, great. Let's keep rolling. I'm not going to go through this. I've only got 13 minutes left, and I want to make sure I get done on time and allow for some Q&A at the end. The one thing I wanted to share with you here is this is what I call the meeting planner's checklist. So if you're running a meeting, you're calling a meeting, and it's a formal meeting, not just quick impromptu like we talked about earlier, This is a checklist that if you walk step by step through this and you do this every single time, your meetings are probably going to go better. And so I just recommend print this out or just keep it as a note app on your phone. I actually have this as a note in my Google Keep. And so if I'm ever calling a meeting, I just go step by step through this saying, okay, have I done that? Have I done that? Have I done that? And if you can get this all done before the actual meeting takes place, it's going to go better. It's just going to go better. Now, I would add a couple things if you're doing virtual meetings. Have you given people instructions on how to log in? Are people comfortable with utilizing the tools? Does everyone have the capacity and tools to be able to do the meeting? These are all things that you might want to test out. And one of the things that you could even do is if you've got somebody that's brand new and they've never done a Zoom or a GoToMeeting or a Teams, how about doing a private one in advance so they can get in and just understand how the stuff works before you bring them into the actual meeting where they're expected to be in and logged in. That'll reduce their stress quite a bit. So that's just one really good tip, and I would add that in if you're doing the virtual meetings. Now, this is sort of fun. I actually think most meetings are a place where you do what I call the 3 Ds. What's the 3 Ds? You get in and you discuss the situation, problem, opportunity. You discuss it. You then make decisions about what you're going to do about it as a team. What are we going to do? And then you decide who's going to do it. So discuss, decide, distribute. Interesting. Let me give you an idea here. Now, I will tell you that from all of my time doing a lot of these programs, some people say what I'm about to share with you right now is one of the best tips they get from this program. What if before you start that formal meeting, you had a designated person who had an Excel spreadsheet on their computer set up? At the top, it says what the name of the meeting is, what the goal or objective of the meeting is. Then they have a grid on the top. You can see agenda, discussion, decision, delegation, due. We'll talk about that more in a minute. Down the side, agenda point 1, and it's not just agenda 1, it's what's actually on the agenda. What is it you're talking about? Who's the lead speaker? And you have that for each of the key agenda points. And this is all on an Excel spreadsheet before the meeting even starts. This is what you've got right here. You got your grid set up. And that designated person, what they're doing through the meeting, the discussion starts taking place on agenda point number 1. You start writing down what's going on in the discussion. You're taking the notes, okay? Now, all of a sudden, you'll hear that you've made a decision. And as the person doing this, did we just make a decision? Yes, the decision is we're going to do this because of the discussion. So you move over here, you write down what the decision is. Okay, well, who's gonna be in charge of that? Oh, it's gonna be Joe and Jill? Okay, Joe and Jill. Hey, when do you both think you'll be able to get that done? Put down the date. And then what you do is you do share screen and you bring up this Excel spreadsheet at this point because you've just filled up agenda item number 1 on the grid. You show it to everyone. Why is that important? Here's why. By showing that, it gives people closure. What I've seen people do is they have discussion, they make a decision, then they get stuck here. They just keep circling because, did we make a decision? Yeah, it's right there on the screen. You made the decision, you know who owns it, you know when it's due. That means you can move on to agenda point 2. Then you go back into the background, you take this off the screen per chance, you let the discussion take place again, but then you're doing the same thing for agenda point 2. When you get to here, bring it back up on the screen, show it to everybody. Now, here's the beauty of this. It gives people closure so you can march straight through your agenda points. And then here's the beauty of this. At the end of the program, that person could then maybe do a quick little copy edit to just clean it up a little bit right there in that Excel spreadsheet, print it to PDF, attach it to the meeting email, and send it out to everybody on the team. You don't have to produce a special meeting documentation document. You've already built it while the meeting took place, and there should be absolutely no surprises. This will give people more closure and allow you to march through your agendas a lot better without a lot of confusion coming out of the program. There should be no confusion because it matches pretty much exactly what happened in the meeting. And that also saves you from that person that likes to get done with the meeting and write their opinion email about what they thought and interpreted happened in the meeting. And they send it out to everybody, which starts the whole big giant game of email ping pong. This could stop that for you. All right, so that's one I strongly recommend. Now, here's another checklist. Manage the meeting. It's time to actually get into the meeting. One thing that I will give you a strong argument for, you log into that virtual meeting. Is everybody there who is supposed to be there, especially the most critical asset? Let's say everybody shows up but Bob is the person you really need in the meeting because he's got the institutional knowledge, he's got the background to keep you from making the same mistake twice and recreating the wheel. He's critical. He doesn't show. What do? I'll tell you what you do. You might have to postpone because Bob's not there. And if Bob's not there, then the hypotheticals are going to show up and you're just going to waste everybody's time. Now, the other thing you do, let's say it's got 4 agenda items. You could maybe jump down to 3 and 4, which are not what Bob is critical for, and handle that in the first 5 to 10 minutes of the meeting, hoping that Bob logs in so you can then go back to 1 and 2 where Bob is a critical resource. But be willing to end a meeting early or don't even hold it at all if critical resource does not show. Because I just believe that's pretty much wasting people's time when the critical assets are not in the meeting. Now, the other thing is talk about the, ground rules. One of the things that I talk about here is called the rabbit trail. That's where you're in a meeting and you've got your clear agenda and all of a sudden somebody brings up a side topic which is not directly related to the critical agenda. And have you ever been in a meeting where a meeting breaks out in the middle of a meeting? You got 7 or 8 people, or 2 to 3 people just hijack it and start having a meeting. Watch for that. I got so excited I popped out one of my ear pods. Watch for that. And time out. Okay, good discussion. But that's not on the agenda. Can the 3 of you hold a little secondary private meeting when this formal meeting gets over for that topic? Make them so that they're aware that they're using up people's time unexpectedly if you're in the meeting. One of the other things I already talked about is did you have a formal meeting etiquette document and you have that person who's going to watch the time and maybe build the notes from the meeting per the spreadsheet option I just shared with you a little bit earlier. All right. And by the way, interesting, fun little thing about sticking to agendas. Did you know that if your meeting ends on time or early, people rated a good meeting, even if nothing really got done? Hey, that was a good meeting. We got done on time. Speaking of that, I got 5 minutes. I got to get done on time. So let's keep rolling. Time to run the meeting. Virtual courtesy. Hey, get the stuff out early. Do the logins early. Test your audio. If you're doing a multi-person meeting, announce yourself when you come in. Like I said, mute your line when not speaking. Put your phone away if you can, or turn it off. I'm using headphones because I've noticed that the sound quality is much better for everybody involved if I don't have speakers. Because the speakers by in and of themselves can create a little bit of feedback. If I have the headphones on, I can hear, but my mic on the computer, which is what I'm speaking through, works well. Notice I'm using the computer mic. I think it's good enough. I've actually got a secondary mic, which is one of the fancy digital mics. I've actually had more problems with that than just using the computer mic, but I've tested both. Works well. Eyes on the screen. I've looked over at myself sometimes in the corner. Sorry about that. I should be looking right at the camera because now I'm looking at you and it's like I'm more interactive with you. And remember, they can hear you typing. So if you're going to be typing, mute yourself. And my wife says the faces help. That's what gives you this ability to have this interaction with people as you're going through this. So I'm a big fan of it right now because I just think it makes it feel like more of a normal office type situation. Last thing, end the meeting. This is sort of a checklist too. Remember, if you're using that grid, then the agenda points should be straightforward and obvious. The consensus should be there and everybody's got their assignments, deliverables, and you can get them out the meeting notes. Use the grid. The grid it's a cool tool that might make your meetings just run better and get done more quickly and timely. And we already talked about the 1-minute manager model. I think this is one of the best models, by the way, for utilizing these tools. Be willing to jump on a quick 2-3 person meeting via Zoom or a teleconference or Teams and handle that one thing. Meetings don't have to take an hour. Meetings don't have to take 90 minutes. You can have a single topic meeting with just a couple people that takes you 5, 10, 15 minutes max, and you handle the thing, you make a plan, and you get back to work. That is a possible option. All right. Last thing, brainstorm. Some of these virtual meeting tools can actually be very cool. And I wanted to show you something here. There is a whiteboard option in Zoom. And let's pop up here real quick at the very top. I'm going to come up to my sharing tools, maybe. Okay, here we go. And let me see. What I want to do is new share, whiteboard. And I'm going to hit share. Now watch what this does. It just brought up a whiteboard. Now look at this. I can start doing drawings. I could, if I'm decent with my writing, hey, look at that. But I could also pop up and grab the text tool and wait, let's do that. Grab text, DVSU. Now, one of the things that you can do, which is pretty cool, check this out. I can come up here. I can grab the eraser and I can get rid of this and this and this and this. I can get rid of this. Now I'm going to come back to the select tool. I'm going to grab this, move this up to the middle, and now I'm going to grab the draw tool. I don't know if any of you are familiar with the whole mind mapping thing, but I could actually do a live real-time brainstorm. 3 or 4 people over here on the side. We're going to bring up a content topic, and then what I can do is just grab my text tool and add new items as people are doing the live brainstorm, and we can all see it right here on the screen. That's called the mind map, controlled mind mapping tool. And you can look up, there's a lot of information about how to do this, but you can do this with the whiteboard. And there's drawing tools like in GoToMeeting, GoToWebinar that can do the same thing. I'm sure there's a comparable option that you can do in here. Just be aware that you can actually use this as a pretty compelling and powerful brainstorming. The one thing that I will say is just remember, let me go back to my share here. Let's stop, let's go into share, new share, back to screen, share, and I'm back to the program. Just remember rule number 1 in a brainstorm, no bad ideas. Although I had a funny thing, somebody at one of my client programs a couple months ago goes, well, Randy, what if the brainstorm is to brainstorm everything that can go wrong? I said, okay, well, that's the one time you can be very critical in a brainstorm. But utilize these tools so you can have some fun. Now remember, you're going to get bonus materials. I'm going to get you the video links, specific tips for Zoom, specific tips for GoToMeeting, and that Microsoft tutorial on how to do virtual meetings with Teams. That's all going to come after today's program, as well as a full 45-minute replay of this segment of the program is going to come out of this. And so with that, I'm going to say thank you for your time, and I'm going to open it back over to Natalie to see if we got any final questions or comments from today's program.
Yeah, a couple on the virtual whiteboard, Randy.
Yeah.
Can only one person write on it at a time?
That's a good question. I haven't tested it. That's actually a wonderfully good question. I'm thinking probably, but the only way to know that is to get everybody out there and bring up the whiteboard and try it. I mean, I guess, we could try it right now. Let's bring back up the whiteboard. I'm going to hit share.
Question for you on this, Randy, is I'm guessing the answer might be no, but maybe more of a suggestion is, do you have any tutorials on the whiteboard?
I have not actually built a full formal tutorial. I did talk about it a little bit in my Zoom bonus meeting, as well as my video that I did on GoToMeeting. And what I did in GoToMeeting, which was interesting, is because GoToMeeting didn't have a whiteboard option, but it did have some available drawing tools. I just opened up a blank PowerPoint, which looks sort of like this, and I used the blank PowerPoint as the whiteboard. Oh, I don't know what I just did there, but look, we got hearts. I would say get in and play around with these tools to see what they can do and what kinds of things that you can get in there. The idea of having multiple people, that might work actually better on a different tool. Now, Natalie, question for you. Can you take over as host, and can you draw on this whiteboard? We could try it right now. I've got it on my screen. Can you draw on this whiteboard? We could actually try it and see. I think this is an interesting little test.
Yeah, it doesn't look like I have the tools.
Yeah, I didn't think you would be able to. Oh, wait, Lisa jumped in. Look at this.
Oh.
Thank you, Lisa. Now, Lisa, what did you do? Did you just go up and grab the text? Can we open up Lisa's line and ask her how she did that? That's fantastic.
Yeah.
She's using annotate.
Oh, okay.
Interesting. Okay. Now, what's cool about that, which means I could set this up like we did here, I could be drawing lines and people could just be dropping in Oh, isn't that interesting? That's where my hearts came from. People could be dropping in text around this while I'm basically just drawing the lines. Look, we got somebody drawing in here right now too. So this tells you the answer to the question. Yes, we can have multiple people on this whiteboard.
Yeah,
That's
and it
really
looks
cool.
like the annotate button for those that are interested is up in the view options. And then it's zoom ratio, request remote control, or annotate is where you can find that.
That's actually super cool. I'm excited to see that we are able to do this.
Yeah, so it's great to test it out.
It looks like some people are playing too much. Love it. Any other questions that you have out there? Oh, look at this. This is going crazy right now. I'm loving this. That's fun.
Yeah, so do you have a recommendation on how many people for a virtual meeting, Randy?
Well, I've often told people that once you get over about 6 to 8 people for a meeting, meetings can often become unwieldy. And usually I say once you get more than about 6 to 8 people, is it really a meeting or is it actually more of a presentation with follow-up discussion and Q&A? You know, because at some point it goes from being a meeting to a presentation. You get 12, 14 people, it's hard to keep all the frogs in the wheelbarrow. So the smaller and tighter you can make it, the better, but you don't want it to be so small that you don't have the necessary diversity or expertise to make it successful. So I would argue you got to find that fine balance. You know, like I said, on the impromptu, it might just be 2 or 3 people. But on the side, you know, if you're doing something with 2, 3, 4 agenda points, maybe you go up to 6 to 8. But I do think the tighter you can make it, the better, without being so restrictive that you don't have the necessary diversity or expertise within the meeting. So it's a fine balance. And I think you got to sort of assess it on a one-by-one basis. But I have found that, you know, usually meetings with about 6 to 8 people or less work best in most situations.
Okay. And then a couple more questions on the whiteboard, Randy. I'm wondering if this is on the controls on your side. Are you able to save that on your end, or do you need to take a screenshot?
That's interesting. Let me take a look here and see what I've got in here. Well, I'm under whiteboard right now, and I'm taking a look under my More panel, hide video panel, full screen video clip. I'm not seeing an option for doing capture of this. However, I could absolutely do a screenshot of this. You know, I could just come down here to the bottom and watch this because we're sharing this on my screen. I'm going to come down here and do snip. I'm going to bring up the snipping tool.
Oh, it looks like somebody was able to save it, Randy. Under the
were they?
There's a save function. So options, annotate, save.
Options, annotate, save. Okay, cool. So I do not see that from my panel, but it looks like there's somebody else was able to find where that is.
Yep, a couple other folks were able to find it there, so that's
okay. Cool. But you could also just simply do this and hit a new snip and watch this. Yeah. I could quickly, you know, come in here and grab that, and boom, I just made that into a picture that I could then share with people following the brainstorm. That's super cool. Look at that. And Batman is apparently Robert Pattinson right now. So.
Randy, one more question on here. It looks like some folks are asking some functionality about Zoom. Can you defer a meeting to somebody else to host, or can you have multiple hosts or trade off the hosting feature?
Well, I think you can actually do handoffs. You might have a primary host that sets up the meeting, but we tested that ourselves earlier, Natalie, where you know, you gave me hosting privileges so we could set up my screen sharing. And then once we did that, one thing we found out that was actually really cool, Natalie then took back the hosting privilege, so she's running it, but I was still able to do my screen shares, as you could see throughout the program. And, you know, so it does seem to me like you could have like a designated primary and maybe a secondary, and that you can do handoffs appropriately. I would look into the permissions, because I know with my GoToMeeting account, I can, you know, designate leader, presenter, and attendee. And the interesting thing about leader and presenter, both of them come in with a live mic and potentially live video. Attendees usually have their video and audio muted, but they can see and hear. And so it depends on the tool. Play with the tools. That's why I want you to do those test sessions, because that's how you can learn how to do exactly this kind of stuff depending on the tool that you want to use. I think having a primary and a secondary when you're doing a formal meeting makes a lot of sense, because what if the primary somehow gets bombed out of the session? And it can happen with internet these days. So good question.
And I think that concludes all the questions we had in the queue, Randy. So with
All right, I'm going to bug everybody because I'm going to turn off the whiteboard. Let's go back to screen and let's hit share and go to the end slide. But that was a lot of fun seeing that live brainstorming option in Zoom looks like it works beautifully. You know, I think that you could use the same kind of tool in just about anything. So get out and have some fun with it. That looks like, you know, that might be a really good way to do a brainstorm even when you get back in the office, because it just allows people to jump in like you saw and bring in all those ideas and fun. So good stuff. Like I said, I'll be sending out the additional bonus materials that Natalie will get out to everybody who was here today. I hope you got some good ideas out of this. Thanks everybody for your time.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for your participation.